What if I told you some of football's darkest secrets were never meant to be uncovered? From cursed transfers to fake national teams, match-fixing mafias to eerie own goals, this isn't just football. It's a thriller disguised as a sport. You think you know the beautiful game? Think again. These stories will haunt your perception of football forever. The disappearance of Brazilian defender Marcos Alonso Pena's talent from one club to another is a tale that still baffles those who followed Spanish football in the late 80s. Marcos Alonso, who showed signs of brilliance with Atletico Madrid, became a whisper of his former self after joining FC Barcelona. For a player once dubbed the future of Spanish defense, his sudden loss of form wasn't just a dip, it was a collapse. Barcelona paid handsomely, expecting dominance. Yet what they got was an echo. He played, yes, but he seemed invisible. Reports from the Times speak of his internal battles, but the club never released a full truth. Some whisper it was psychological, others claim he had differences with Johan Cruyff. But some, the ones who talk in bars after too many beers, insist that he was cursed. The idea of an actual hex being placed on a footballer might sound ridiculous to the European press, but not in Spain. Not in a land where clubs still have spiritual advisors. Not in a country where legends of the evil I still carry weight. The story of the Spanish underdog club CDL Dents is one that isn't just strange, it feels scripted. In April 2017, the club suffered a 12-0 loss to Barcelona B. It wasn't just a scoreline that raised eyebrows. It was a complete absence of resistance. Passes were misplaced with comedic precision. Players stepped away from tackles. Some even appeared to allow goals to happen. Hours after the match, El Dents coach, Filippo Vito Di Piero, was arrested, and what followed was a whirlwind of allegations about match fixing, with ties to an Italian syndicate running deep. Players were accused of being paid to throw matches, and while some confessed, others claimed they were threatened. The club's president stepped down, and an internal purge followed. But here's the mystery. Why did it take a 12-0 defeat to wake the authorities up? El Dents had been on a horrible losing streak, and the signs were there. Was it willful ignorance? Or was there protection from higher up? This wasn't a one-off. It was a season-long operation. To this day, no one knows how many games were truly fixed or how many careers were bought and buried. And that uncertainty, it lingers. There's something so chilling about what happened to Emiliano Sala. The Argentine striker, full of life and on the brink of a dream move to Cardiff City, boarded a private plane to cross the English Channel in January 2019. He never made it. The aircraft disappeared overseas. Days later, his body was recovered. His pilot, David Ibbotson, was never found. The world mourned. But the deeper layers of the story are what really dig into your bones. The aircraft used wasn't certified for commercial flights. The pilot wasn't licensed for night flying, and the messages Sala sent before his death revealed his fear. He thought the plane was falling apart. Then came the money trail. Cardiff refused to pay the transfer fee, saying the deal was incomplete. Nantes fought back. FIFA got involved. But while the clubs argued over money, the football community whispered about how a multi-million-pound industry allowed one of its players to fly on a dodgy plane. Why was the flight organized the way it was? Who cleared it? And who was truly responsible? The tragic truth is this. Emiliano Sala's death was avoidable, but football's shadows always seem to swallow responsibility. One of the most bizarre events in the history of the World Cup revolves around Andres Escobar, and not the tragic unalive that followed, but what surrounded that infamous own goal. During the 1994 World Cup, Colombia was a team full of promise. Andres Escobar, a composed and brilliant defender, was the heart of their backline. Then came the group match against the United States, and that fateful deflection into his own net. Colombia lost. 10 days later, Escobar was dead, fired 12 times in Medellin. The mainstream narrative points toward a cartel-linked unaliving over gambling losses. But over time, holes in that story have widened. Some believe Escobar's death had little to do with the own goal, and more to do with internal disputes between powerful figures within Colombian football and the narco world. Escobar had reportedly spoken out against the criminal influence in the national team. He wanted a cleaner future. But in a time when Pablo Escobar's shadow still hung over the sport, speaking out could be a death sentence. Andres Escobar might not have been unalive for a mistake. He might have been silenced for being brave. And when I remember his calm voice, his integrity, and the way he carried himself, I can't help but feel that football lost not just a player that day, but a chance for something better. The more you dig into the history of African football, the more you stumble upon tales that seem pulled from a supernatural thriller. One of the strangest among them is the mystery of the Togo national team's fake version. In 2010, Bahrain scheduled a friendly against Togo and lost 3-0. But something wasn't right. Bahrain's coach, Joseph Hickersberger, felt the Togolese side played bizarrely, disjointed, slow, and suspiciously uninterested. It was only after the game that the truth unraveled. Togo had no knowledge of the match. The team that took the field wasn't the official national team. It was an imposter squad organized by a match-fixing syndicate. They wore Togo kits. They had documents. They even had an alleged coach. But none of them were affiliated with the Togo Football Federation. The man behind the con, Wilson Raj Paramal, would later become one of the most infamous match fixers in football history. But here's the kicker. How did they get away with it, even temporarily? How did a national federation not realize its name was being used? And more importantly, how many more fake friendlies have happened without being noticed? This wasn't a fluke. It was a well-oiled machine. The idea that national identity can be fake for a result, it chills the blood. Then there's a curious case of Adriano Leite Ribeiro, the emperor of Inter Milan in Brazil, who went from being the most feared striker in world football to fading into obscurity. In the mid-2000s, Adriano was unstoppable. Left-footed, powerful, fast. He was supposed to be the heir to Ronaldo Nazario. But then, almost overnight, the fire was gone. He left Inter. He came back to Brazil. His weight fluctuated. His appearances became fewer. And then he was gone. The media chalked it up to injury and lifestyle issues. But years later, we learned the full story. Adriano never recovered from the death of his father. He sank into depression. And while his clubs offered support, they didn't know how to help him. He admitted to drinking to numb the pain. Teammates covered for him. But football didn't protect him. And that's the mystery. How does the system fail someone with so much talent, so much promise, and such visible pain? If Adriano had played in today's era, with more attention to mental health, would things have ended differently? Or was the weight of expectation always too much? The game devours its own, sometimes. A tale from Premier League that still feels like a fever dream is the saga of Ali Dia, the supposed Senegalese international who briefly played for Southampton in 1996. George Weah, then FIFA World Player of the Year, allegedly called Southampton manager Graham Souness to recommend his cousin, Ali Dia, as a promising striker who had played for PSG. Souness took the bait. Dia was signed on a 1-month contract and actually featured in a Premier League match. What followed was one of the most laughably bad performances in top-flight history. He was subbed off just 53 minutes after coming on. It was only after the game that the false information unraveled. George Weah never made that call. Ali Dia wasn't his cousin. He hadn't played for PSG. It was all a lie. But here's what really makes the blood run cold. How did no one at the club verify his background? How could such a massive operation fall for a phone call? Was it just desperation, naivety, or something more sinister? The Ali Dia incident is funny until you realize how fragile football's gatekeeping can be. Football has always its strange rituals, but few are as dramatic as the tale of one Sebastian Veron and the number 5 jersey. When Veron returned to Estudiantes, he demanded the number 5 shirt, his father's number, his legacy, but the club had retired it in honor of La Bruja Veron. The fans were split. Giving him the number meant unretiring a sacred symbol. Refusing could insult their biggest icon son. Eventually, he got it. But shortly after, Estudiantes entered a bizarre period of turmoil. Injuries plagued the squad. Players reported strange happenings at the training ground. A local spiritualist claimed that disturbing the sanctity of the number 5 had awoken unseen forces. And even though the club dismissed it publicly, they held a cleansing ritual on the pitch under the guise of bonding. The coincidence between the number, the fallout, and the mystery around it is one of those football stories you don't forget. Because sometimes numbers carry more than legacy. They carry energy, and perhaps even curses. One of the eeriest events in recent football history occurred in the 2015 Africa Cup of Nations, when Tunisia faced Equatorial Guinea. The match ended in chaos. Tunisia had a goal controversially disallowed, then conceded a questionable penalty. The referee, Rajinder Parsad Seechurn of Mauritius, was hounded off the pitch. Fans threw objects. Players had to be held back. CAF later banned Seechurn for poor performance. But the mystery lies in what wasn't said. How did a tournament hosted by Equatorial Guinea end up with a host getting so many favorable calls? Was it incompetence, or was it rigged? And why did CAF choose a relatively unknown referee for such a crucial match? Whispers of political pressure, backdoor deals, and favors owed floated through the air. In a continent where governance and sport often dance too closely, this felt like more than just bad officiating. It felt like a show, a performance. And for those who watched live, it didn't feel like football. It felt like theater wrapped in shadows. Even in the modern era of VAR and analytics, some moments remain inexplicable. Take the 2022 Champions League final, where Real Madrid faced Liverpool. The lead up to the game was chaos. Fans outside the Stade de France were tear-gassed, ticket systems collapsed, and kickoff was delayed. But once the game began, it was almost as if fate had chosen Real Madrid. Liverpool dominated. They created chance after chance. But nothing went in. Then Vinicius Jr. scored, and Thibaut Courtois turned into a wall. Madrid won 1-0. That's the official story. But the haunting detail? Liverpool had 24 shots. Real had 4. Expected goals painted a massacre in Liverpool's favor. Yet, somehow, Madrid lifted the trophy. Fans joked about a Champions League script, but others weren't laughing. Some began to question whether football's biggest stage was truly unpredictable anymore, whether invisible hands had started scripting outcomes. The randomness of sport began to look a little too clean, a little too poetic, and the seed of doubt was planted. Some nights, I lie awake and think about these stories, not just because they're strange, but because they remind me that for all its glory, football hides more than it shows. Behind every match, every player, every celebration, there's a deeper truth, one we may never see. And that's what keeps me up at night. Now that you've heard these twisted tales, which one chilled you the most? Do you think some of these were just coincidences? Or is there something far more sinister hiding in plain sight within football? Was Adriano simply broken by grief, or failed by the system? Was Andres Escobar truly silenced for speaking out? And how many more fake friendlies or cursed careers are still buried beneath the surface? Let us know what you think in the comments. We read every single one. And if you're obsessed with the hidden truths and shadowy corners of football, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're just getting started.